When horror is real. Narrator. Horror films often spring from the imagination of writers and directors, crafted to shock and entertain audiences. But every so often, a film emerges that blurs the line between fiction and reality. A film so chilling, so deeply unsettling, that it forces us to ask, could this actually be true? In 2013, the world was introduced to The Conjuring, a movie that seemed almost too horrifying to be real. Possessions, curses, a family tormented in their own home. It felt like pure Hollywood. Yet behind the screams and the shadows lies a haunting truth. The Conjuring was not just a story. It was based on an actual case investigated by Ed and Lorraine Warren, two of the most renowned paranormal investigators in history. For decades, the Warrens explored some of the darkest corners of the supernatural, from exorcisms and demonic encounters to hauntings that defy explanation. And among all of their cases, the story that inspired The Conjuring stands as one of the most terrifying. This was not merely folklore or rumor. It was a documented haunting, experienced by an ordinary family who believed their dream home had become a prison of fear. Tonight, we step inside that story, into the farmhouse in Rhode Island, into the history of a land cursed by tragedy, and into the nightmare that refused to let a family escape. This is not just a movie. This is the true terror behind The Conjuring. Chapter 1. The Perron Family. Narrator. In the winter of 1971, Roger and Carolyn Perron thought they had found their dream home. Along with their 5 young daughters, they moved into a centuries-old farmhouse in Harrisville, Rhode Island, a sprawling property filled with rustic charm, creaking wooden beams, and the kind of history that seemed to whisper from every wall. At first, the family saw it as a fresh start, a place where their children could grow up surrounded by fields and freedom. But almost immediately, the dream began to unravel. It started subtly. The girls claimed their brooms would vanish, only to be found in strange places. Carolyn noticed piles of dirt appearing on a freshly cleaned floor, as if unseen hands had scattered them. Doors opened and closed without reason, while faint knocking echoed through the halls at night. At first, the family dismissed these as quirks of an old house, wood settling, wind through cracks. But soon, the activity grew impossible to ignore. Objects levitated, shadows slithered across walls where no light touched. The children whispered of voices in the dark, unseen presences watching them. Their dream farmhouse had turned into something else entirely. A silent, waiting nightmare. Chapter 2. The Dark History. Narrator. As the Perron family settled into their farmhouse, they began to uncover unsettling details about its past. The property, nearly 2 centuries old, had been passed down through the same bloodline for generations. But with that long history came a record of unrelenting tragedy. Death seemed stitched into the land itself. Suicides in the home, drownings in the nearby creek, mysterious illnesses, and even murders that had long been buried in town records. But the darkest name tied to the farmhouse was that of Bathsheba Sherman. Born in the early 1800s, Bathsheba lived a life clouded by rumor and fear. Neighbors whispered that she was a witch, a woman who consorted with the devil. Legends claimed she sacrificed her own infant as part of a ritual, offering its soul to darkness. Though never convicted, suspicion clung to her until her death, and many believed she cursed the land before departing this world. For the Perrons, these weren't just stories. Soon, Carolyn and her daughters would claim to encounter Bathsheba's presence themselves, a spirit that seemed to linger, cruel and vengeful, within the walls of their home. Chapter 3: The Haunting Begins. Narrator: what began as small disturbances soon became unrelenting torment. The Perron children would wake in the dead of night, screaming that cold hands had yanked them from their beds. Footsteps echoed across the halls, though no one was there, and doors slammed with a violent force that shook the walls. The youngest daughters spoke of spirits, some gentle, others terrifyingly cruel, who whispered to them from the dark corners of their rooms. But it was Carolyn Perron who bore the brunt of the haunting. She awoke with deep bruises across her body, as if something invisible had struck her. The house filled with the sickening stench of rotting flesh, lingering even when no source could be found. And then came the visions. A ghastly woman with a broken neck, her hollow eyes fixed on Carolyn. Night after night, the presence grew stronger, darker. Desperate and terrified, the family sought help from Ed and Lorraine Warren. The Warrens began Chapter 4, Ed and Lorraine Warren. Narrator: when Ed and Lorraine Warren entered the Perron farmhouse, they carried with them years of experience confronting the unexplained. The couple had already gained notoriety for their work on cases like Amityville, but even they were shaken by what they found in Harrisville. Lorraine, gifted with clairvoyance, claimed she was overwhelmed the moment she crossed the threshold. A dark presence revealed itself to her, one she identified as Bathsheba Sherman. To Lorraine, it was no lingering ghost. It was something inhuman, a demonic force bent on tormenting the family. In their investigation carefully, documenting every occurrence, they noted dramatic drops in temperature, objects shifting on their own, and sudden bursts of foul odors. On more than one occasion, they claimed to witness full-bodied apparitions drifting through the rooms. Their chilling conclusion was undeniable. The Perrons were not just haunted, they were under siege by a relentless demonic entity. Chapter 5: The Attempted Exorcism. Narrator: as the attacks grew more violent, the Warrens decided that the only hope for the Perrons was a cleansing ritual, an attempt to banish the entity from the home. The family gathered in fear as prayers filled the farmhouse. But instead of peace, chaos erupted. Carolyn Perron, the mother, suddenly convulsed, her voice twisting into guttural tones that did not belong to her. She spoke in languages she had never learned, her body thrashing with an unnatural force that took several people to restrain. Her daughters screamed as the shadows in the room seemed to close in. Realizing the ritual was spiraling out of control, Roger Perron made a desperate decision. Terrified that his wife might not survive, he ordered the Warrens to stop and leave their home. The haunting, however, did not vanish with them. For nearly 10 long years, the Perrons lived under the weight of that dark presence, until they finally abandoned the farmhouse in 1980. Chapter 6: Fact versus Fiction. Narrator: when The Conjuring hit theaters, it captured global audiences with its terrifying portrayal of the Perron haunting. But as with any Hollywood adaptation, reality and dramatization blurred. The core of the story, the Perron family's experiences, the Warrens' investigation, and the shadow of Bathsheba, all stem from real accounts. To this day, the farmhouse in Harrisville still stands, and its later owners have reported unexplained phenomena. Doors opening on their own, footsteps in empty rooms, and disembodied voices drifting through the night. Skeptics dismiss the tale, suggesting that the Warrens exaggerated details to build their reputation as America's most famous paranormal investigators. Yet the Perron family has remained consistent in their testimonies, never wavering from the horrors they claim to have lived through. Fact or fiction, the story refuses to fade. And perhaps that is the true terror, that some nightmares do not stay on the movie screen. They linger in reality. Outro: The Legacy of Fear. Narrator: The Conjuring was more than a horror movie. It was a window into a haunting that still chills those who lived it. The Perron family has never denied their experiences. Lorraine Warren, until her passing, stood by every word of what she witnessed. And Bathsheba's name remains cursed, tied forever to the house in Harrisville. So the question is, was it all a terrifying story of mass hysteria, or proof that evil truly walks among us? Either way, one thing is certain: when the lights go out and the shadows creep across the walls, the Perron family's nightmare reminds us that some houses are never just homes. Some are traps.